So, hi Tony. I have lots of slides prepared, but I think it would probably be sensible rather than doing this as a kind of one-to-many chalk and talk session to just start by finding out a bit about you and your business and your kind of, I guess, level of confidence and familiarity with social media in general. So I can tailor the session to what's actually going to be useful for you rather than talking through lots of stuff you know already or lots of stuff you're not going to use.
Okay. Okay. So I've been a background of me. I've been a photographer for a very long time,
Okay.
and I got into doing virtual tours for Virgin Atlantic. Cut a long story short, did a lot of work with their 747s and clubhouses.
Hmm.
Got hooked on virtual tours, but nobody was really buying them. So, anyway, another long story short, I ended up working on the Olympic bid for the mayor, and we had a server running in the mayor's office
Hmm.
for supporting material for the Olympic bid. So, like a virtual tour of London, all the major places. So, skipping ahead a bunch of years. So, I started off black and white film as a photojournalist, and then did a lot of commercial photography and ended up the whole time doing construction photography. So I ended up doing 3D virtual scans to which you can add a lot of data. Now, this has been used in. So, how many people now? We've got lots of people now. So, you don't want my whole flipping life story, do you?
No, that's fine. Let's carry on. Abbas, welcome. I'm just introducing the session by asking for a little bit of background on your businesses, so I can make sure that this session is useful for you.
Okay, so what my experiences with social media is quite good with LinkedIn, not much anything else. And my core thing is 3D virtual models to which you can add data.
Hmm.
So links, things like to YouTube videos, links to websites,
Hmm.
overlaid information. It's quite deep actually. The number of things you can add on to a 3D virtual tour
Hmm.
is vast. The only real target market I'm avoiding is real estate because that's actually quite crowded.
I was going to say that's quite saturated in virtual tours, but um, so you'd be doing it more for things like leisure and tourism, I would guess.
Could be there's a big AEC architecture, engineering, construction kind of need. But you're right. I also want to take it more generalist, so out to art galleries and that kind of yeah, like you say, leisure retail.
Okay.
It's really the other thing that we do is like a three where you can meet inside the 3D model. So it's like a Zoom meeting, but you can drop into the and walk around and talk to people and stuff. It's really very cool.
Sounds it. Yeah.
So that's trying to roll out.
Cool. All right. Thanks very much, Tony. That's given me a good heads up. Abbas, welcome.
Hey,
Hey.
hi. Um, so
Oh, we've got
good to
some.
see you. Do you guys want me to also give like an introduction of what I'm doing, maybe?
Yeah, that'd be perfect. So I'd just
I
like
just like
a little bit
a
about
little bit about
and um, some background on your kind of level of confidence with social media, what kind of channels you're using already, or which ones you're less confident with and could use some support with.
right. So maybe I can also like give an overview of who we are. So
Mhm.
we're building a events management platform for the game sector. Um, which includes like famous streamers who stream video games and they want to sort of create events to promote them. Um, and also communities who manage events and they want to sort of pay for a professional experience to learn the game. Maybe if you play D&D, there are a lot of people paying professional game host money to kind of host the games, and we also sort of help with that on a high level. So that's what we do. Is it's basically events promotion and events management for the games communities. And one thing that we also do is we integrate with different community platforms. So if you know Discord or Twitch, we create events on both of these platforms using one dashboard that we provide. So it essentially saves time when you want to create events on different platforms together. So that opens like a lot of opportunities for us to market the product. So we can, use the Discord communities to promote our thing, and we can also use like Twitch, Twitch chat, or maybe Twitter, where these people are hanging out. So yeah, I've been using mostly Twitter to like post a little bit about what we do, and maybe ask people to sort of come check it out. But mostly I think our audience comes from the Discord communities. So we do a lot of collaborations with different communities to kind of see if they are interested in trying our product and maybe using it.
So, and presumably your target audience is the streamers, as opposed to kind of trying to reach their audiences. I'm guessing they bring the fans with them rather than you're kind of marketing the events directly to them, or is it a bit of both?
So our primary customers are the streamers, so we don't charge the viewers of the communities. It's essentially like a B2B thing where we just charge the whole community to host or create these events. So that's where our go-to approach is to find the managers rather than individual users of that community, if that makes sense.
Sure. Okay. But there is still a need to engage with the audience for the streamers as well as the streamers themselves on social media, or is it just that B2B communication that's being done through that?
So I think the goal is to find more leads and however they come. So I think being present on social media just puts more eyes on you, and it just triggers that lead that we need to kind of sort of take it to the next stage. But I think you're also right. Maybe social media is not the best channel for us because everyone's on there, and you need only the community managers who are probably also busy with their stuff. So that's something to look at. Maybe a direct approach might work better for us, but right now we're doing sort of everything. It's maybe.
Okay. Cool. All right. Thanks for that. That's given me a good bit of background to work with. As I said up top, just before you joined us, because it's quite a small group, I've got some slides which I would usually present to a room of people, and kind of do it as more of a lecture almost. But since we're a smaller group, feel free to shout out, jump in at any point if there's something you want more clarification on, or anything else that if it kind of raises any questions for you, please feel free. And likewise, if there's anything I'm covering that you're thinking, now this just isn't relevant to us at all, then feel free to ask me to move on as well. We'll kind of treat this as a bit more of a one-to-one or a one-to-two consultancy kind of session rather than a training course. But with that said, I'll move to my prepared slides. Can you both see my screen as well?
Yeah, just to let you know, Anna's trying to join, but she's having, well, I think the link I've sent her is not working, so she will join as soon as we can get this sorted out. So just so you where she's trying to join.
Cool. I'll let her have a few minutes as well when she joins us.
Okay.
Okay, so just to introduce myself, my name's Joseph. I work for Sussex Innovation as a PR and communications advisor. So my kind of day-to-day job is working with small businesses, startups, academic innovators, student businesses, all stripes really. People with new ideas that they're trying to get out into the market. And my role is all things communications. So anything written or shared with the wider world. Basically, my job boils down to helping small businesses to tell their stories more effectively. So today's session is kind of badged as being a social media session, but I think we'll tread a little bit into content marketing as well, because I kind of think of the two as one and the same. Welcome, Anna. Hello. So I've just said to the guys here, this is because it's quite a small group. I'm going to be doing a bit of chalk and talk, but feel free to shout out and jump in if there's anything you want clarification on, or any sort of extra support that you need around any of the areas that we cover. Can I get a little bit of a picture of you and your business and your kind of level of familiarity and confidence with different social media, what channels you're on, that sort of thing?
Sure. So we make jumpsuits for digital nomads, essentially, other markets too, that protect the user from biting insects or insects that bite. We're in the throes of social media at the moment. We've just opened an Instagram account. We have got all the other ones open, but we're focusing on Instagram and posting some lifestyle pictures up, as well as behind the scenes. And I'm working with London South Bank students on this.
Cool.
I've got a background in digital marketing.
Excellent. So I'm going to be preaching to the choir today, it seems like. We've got a digital marketer, someone with a background in content creation and photography, and someone who works with streamers. So all of you are pretty savvy already, it sounds like. So hopefully I won't be covering huge amounts of the basics, but sorry, Tony.
I'll just say, having been in with Anna before, if you do a Google search of Mozzie Cozzy and have a look at the website, it really does bring it to life. They're completely amazing.
Oh, thanks, Tony. I have to say, caveat that I built panels for a livelihood for 30 years, mainly offline to online. And that was well before social media. So actually don't have much background in social media itself.
Okay. Well, I'll do my best then to fill in some of the blanks for you today. Okay, so let's begin then with 6 big questions. This is going to be the kind of rough structure of what we discussed this evening. I think there are really 3 or 4 big questions and a couple of smaller questions there. The main one that we're going to be spending a big chunk of our time on is why publish on social media in the first place. And then underneath that, once you've kind of made that decision of using social as a marketing channel, then that creates several further questions. So who are you talking to? What do you have to say to them? Where are you going to say it? When are you going to say it? And then the big logistical, practical issue at the end, how are you going to manage all of that? So that's going to be our kind of format. So let's start with why. I probably am sharing some old news at this point, but lots of people are on social media. So a couple of stats from, I think these are a couple of years out of date now, but around 3/4 of all internet users are active on at least one social network, and even more businesses are active on at least one social network. A huge amount of online shopping is influenced by social media, whether that's referrals from other users or spotting a brand, or becoming familiar with a brand through social media. And then the last one, it does actually have an impact on the bottom line, that customers spend a decent chunk more cash on companies when they're engaged with over social media. So lots of good reasons why. But I think one of the kind of biggest traps that you can fall into is doing social media because you feel like it's something that you have to do, rather than something that makes sense for you as a business. I don't think that's necessarily a problem for anyone on the call today. I think you all seem like you're pretty kind of savvy around your reasons for doing it. But I have worked with plenty of businesses before where I think halfway through this kind of meeting, actually you don't need to be on social media at all. It's not the right fit for you. And I think a lot of the kind of horror stories you hear around brands getting piled on socials are because they feel a sense of obligation and they're doing the kind of bare minimum, rather than because they see it as a valuable channel. So that's how you end up with kind of terrible communication, like British Airways saying this Twitter account is only manned from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So we'll reply to you when we get to it, which quite rightfully the customer there is saying, you're $1 billion company, surely you can have someone on your social media accounts full time. Likewise, Volkswagen, around the time of the emissions scandal, they put out one of those kind of boilerplate Facebook posts of Happy New Year, what's your resolution for this year? And unsurprisingly, every single comment in response to that is talking about, well, my resolution is going to be more environmentally friendly, or not to mislead my customers, and so on and so forth. So that kind of boilerplate approach to social media is something that most audiences are pretty aware of now, and are conscious of when they're not being kind of spoken to in a real human connection kind of way. So the main kind of takeaway really from that is, if you're on social media, you better have a good reason for doing it, and the main reason is going to be conversation, communication, engaging with your audience, rather than just kind of broadcasting out into the void. So I like to come back to the BBC's mission statement whenever I'm doing any kind of training around communications, because I think it's a really succinct way of summing up what makes for good content. The BBC should know, obviously they've been doing it for over 100 years, and they've used this as their mission statement that entire time, that they make programs, shows, services, products that will inform, educate and entertain the public. And I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind whenever you're creating content, is in some way, is this enriching our audience? Is it telling them something they don't know? Is it helping them to do something? Or is it at the very bare minimum entertaining them and keeping them interested? The best content ideally does all three of those things. So if you've got something that ticks all of those boxes, that's the real kind of content strategy gold dust. But you better make sure it's doing at least one of them every time you post something. And then once you have an idea of what you're saying, it's all about finding the right audience for that message and the right channel to reach them on. So does anyone, is everyone here familiar with the AIDA model? Any any no's or yeses in the room there? Okay, so this is a useful tool for thinking about your marketing funnel and the way that social media and content plays into that. So AIDA stands for awareness, interest, desire, action. And if you think of everyone that you're communicating with at each stage, you're going to lose a chunk of that audience as you move further down the funnel. So it's useful to think at each stage of that process, what is the content that I'm creating and what's the job it's intended to do? So awareness content, the stuff that's reaching a mass audience that you're broadcasting far and wide, that's all about grabbing people's attention, offering them that kind of additional bit of information that captures them and convinces them that you're someone worth paying attention to. So you might be broadcasting awareness content to hundreds of thousands of people, and maybe 1,000 of them take an interest and follow one of your channels or sign up for your newsletter or whatever it might be. So that's your awareness stage. Then you've got your interest stage, which is where you start to offer more value and really give away something that's going to provide kind of long-lasting value to your customer. So that's where, if you've heard the phrase evergreen content, that's where that kind of content comes into play. So things like a downloadable white paper or an ebook is a great example of interest leading content. Or if you're in the e-commerce sphere, brochures and guides are ideal for that kind of thing. It's where you kind of narrow down that community even further into ones who are actually interested in your product as opposed to just what you've got to say. Then at the desire stage, that's where you really start using an actual sales message. So you've built that level of interest where people are kind of part of your gang, but maybe they're not actually a customer yet. You build trust with them through that desire content by showcasing who you are and what you do. And then finally, some people might already decide to buy from you at that point, but some need a little extra nudge, and that's where your action content comes in. So it's where you make a compelling offer to the customer that will convert into a sale. So things like sharing testimonials, case studies, customer stories, things that show your product in action, and also combining that with some kind of compelling offer that just convinces them to take action. So that might be a special limited time offer that's only available to loyal subscribers, or that kind of sales message. There's also a school of thought that after you complete this funnel, there's actually two further A's to think about, and those are aftercare and advocacy. So if you think of those customers who convert as the people who are going to be referring your next batch of customers to you, it's really important that you give them the best possible service. I'm sure you're all doing that anyway, but the other half of that is giving them opportunities to share the quality of that service with their network. So making it easy for them to become advocates for you. So if you can find ways to get them to leave a review, leave a testimonial, share things on social media, give them templates, give them, make it as low resistance as possible for them to share the word about you. That's where that aftercare and advocacy content comes from. So that's your basic kind of structure. So now I want to talk a little bit about sources of ideas. When you're casting around for what to put out into the world via social media, where do you get ideas from? I've shared a few of my favorites on this slide for when I'm at a complete loose end for what to write or what images to create or what to put out on a social media plan. These are some of my my top tips. There's a great site called answerthepublic.com, which is basically it collates things that people are typing into search engines as questions. So if you type in some of the keywords around your business and see what it spits out, it'll usually come up with pretty quickly 100 excellent blog titles, and use those to inspire what your next piece of content might be. I also follow the Journo Request hashtag. That's mainly one that's on Twitter, but it is starting to be used on other social channels as well. And that's a hashtag that journalists and media people use to research stories. So if they're looking for an authority or an expert on a particular topic, then they'll put it out there with that hashtag. And I basically will dip into the Journo Request hashtag a couple of times a day just to see what's come up. And sometimes it'll be, we're working on a Christmas gift guide and we're looking for X, Y, and Z. Sometimes it'll be, I need an expert in quantum physics to help me with this article that I don't understand. So it's very hit and miss. But if you just kind of keep on top of it, sometimes something will come along that's the perfect thing that your brand can jump on for some added publicity. I also like to use forums. They tend to be a great place where customers are talking about the questions and issues and challenges they have around your sector or your area of expertise. Look at what your competitors are doing. It's always good to steal ideas from people who are doing it well. If you see something that seems to be performing well on social, then why not do something similar or take inspiration from it? And finally, customer journey mapping is an exercise that I like to do where you put yourself in the shoes of your customer as they go through that AIDA funnel and think about at each stage, what are they looking for? What's going to convince them to move on to the next step? What kind of information do they need? What questions are they asking? And how can I satisfy those? This is a bit of a prompt really to talk about the types of content that you're already creating and what ideas. So yeah, is this sparking any ideas for any of you for something that you're not doing currently as part of your content strategy, but that might be of interest to your audience?
Definitely. I think for me, showing people how the scans are created is quite important. There's quite a few things, so the kind of behind the scenes side of things. We have been doing live streams, like because really my audience is an audience that doesn't know how much time and money and carbon can be saved from using virtual tours with added information. So the whole thing has to be fun, and it needs to be different ways to bring people into it. So I work with Gareth Wax. You may know him. Do you know Gareth? Many Purple Hats. Yeah. So he does a LinkedIn promotion, and he does live streaming with that. So I join his audience and my audience, and we do that. But we spent quite a long time trying to bring people into the 3D tour and do that live. It's quite problematical with the sound and things. So we've had a few disasters, but it's been quite a bit of fun and people have enjoyed it.
And is that, thinking about that marketing funnel, where would you say that particular kind of content sits? Is it at the interest stage?
Yeah, I would say as I say, when you're trying to sell to people who have they're all interested in it. So a year ago when I started with LinkedIn, I wasn't able to connect people that I wanted to connect to. But having done live streams and built up about 1,300 contacts or whatever, I'm now finding I'm in an interesting situation because I can send, using Sales Navigator, track people down. I can send an invite, and there's a pretty good chance that they're going to connect because they know that they ought to know more about it than they do.
Right.
So there is a kind of willing audience, but there's not a lot of them don't. It's quite difficult from that to nobody's been assigned the task of spending lots of money on it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's always a challenging one, particularly for those kind of big ticket items, right? It's
well, it is big ticket in one respect, but in terms of having it done, it's ridiculously inexpensive, honestly.
mm-hmm.
But without going into the detail, just trust me on that.
Cool. So you're using a combination of those kind of webinars and behind the scenes content, and then is the LinkedIn Sales Navigator coming in after that, or
There's nothing. I don't have any automation. I've studied quite a bit about automation, but I haven't got there yet.
Okay, I'm just thinking about what's the call to action at the end of
Yeah, we haven't got as far as that.
Okay, so yeah, that would be my my number one advice is really think about, you've offered a great insight into how they can use your package in those webinars. So at the end, you want to be thinking about what the ask is and how you can basically capture their information and add them to your to the later stages of your sales funnel at that point. And maybe that's a case of saying, if you give me your email now, you'll get X or Y piece of content or piece of information, or you'll get a 10% discount code for if you do decide to get one of these 3D scans made, but something that gives them a sense that they've gained something additional by being part of that audience.
Yeah, I think you found my Achilles heel there.
Cool. All right. Who's next? Abbas, do you want to share anything that this slide's sparking for you?
I do. I think get the gist of what are the things that we are not doing. So, for example, I think one thing we really want to include in our marketing is the storytelling, and also just sharing the mission of our the organization a bit more than directly asking people to just come and sign up. And for that, I think we can use things like sharing our mission and the vision, and probably user stories of how people are using the product, which I think can be a good thing. And then give the idea that, hey, you can also use this tool as like a side thing rather than the first thing. And I think that can increase building a calendar. We're building something to facilitate these people coming together, right? So that's what I try to integrate into our marketing, but I think I should focus on it more from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I play D&D myself, so I'm well aware of your audience, but it's something that's really bound up in community, and it's at the end of the day, it's about getting together with other people and spending kind of quality time with each other, and the game itself is like a vehicle to do that. That kind of find that social time and carve out that time to hang out with friends. So I think you've got a really strong set of values there that you can really play on and create some really compelling content around. I was going to say, going back to Tony and also looking forward to Anna, all three of you have such a great you're in such a good position that your businesses all have a really strong visual element to them. You have a lot of almost ready-made content sitting there for you to share, and there are a lot of businesses that I work with who would kill to have that. So it's a good position to be in. I think coming on to Anna, I'm guessing Mozzie Cozzie, a lot of your content will be probably, but do you have any ideas for ways you can kind of expand that?
Yeah, we've done some things already, like animation, problems solving, behind the scenes videos, blogs, events, newsletter, people behind the scenes, infographics. We've got some products for prospects as well, so travel list, packing list, hope to get colours and mozzie prevention handouts as well, downloads I mean. But I think we're at the moment we're focusing on creating a video to show how it's put on and adapted, and that's quite a lot of work, but we're going to repurpose that for TikTok, I think, YouTube too. We've posted a couple of videos, some behind the scenes, need some more on Instagram. We've got some customer story draft newsletters ready to go. Need some more GIFs, maybe poll and quiz. The rest I think are a bit too stretching at the moment. Yeah. But I can see from this list what we could do more of that's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, I mean, those prompts are not all of them are going to work for every business, of course. I hasten to add, but it sounds like you're well on top of everything you need to be doing, really.
It just takes time and trying to leverage people who have got a synergy with the brand, and who have an enthusiasm to do it and also learn at the same time and educate us. So we take a bit longer probably than if we were just paying someone to do it.
I think that's an entirely reasonable way of going about it, really. I'll talk a little bit later about ways that you can be more efficient in your time, but I think fundamentally the stuff you're creating, it's worth putting the work in. So it's encouraging to hear that you're doing that.
Each one is hopefully building some form of community wealth, which is a story in itself. So that's why we're taking longer.
And you mentioned that your audience is kind of digital nomads, so presumably they're a potentially helpful audience in producing some kind of customer content for you as well.
They will be once we market to them. They're in groups of 10 to 50,000 globally, and we're trying to focus on sort of test group in the UK first because of dispatch reasons. We want to get the customer service right and the experience right before we start sending abroad, although we have done some tests.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I've said it already, but I would really think hard about how you encourage that kind of that funnel of content from your customers. So when they get your package delivered to marketing 101, so I'm gonna speed through it quite quickly because I think most of you will be on top of this already, but it's really key that before you start doing anything, you start by properly defining who your customer segments are, and yeah, by trying to talk to everyone, you tend to create messaging and content that's quite vanilla, quite broad, and doesn't really impact anyone, doesn't really reach anyone. So you all three of you sound like you're pretty familiar with who you're talking to. I think Anna and Abbas have very specific niche audiences that you're targeting, which is really, really great. I think Tony, you might need to do a little bit more exploring with the people that you're inviting into your webinars to find out a little bit more about them and get a bit of a kind of pen portrait together potentially, just to give you more of a steer on what's going to appeal, where they're going to be hanging out, and that sort of thing. But maybe I'm wrong.
I just, people fall into different camps, and yes, it would be good if I could. The actual product, the actual scan, isn't limited to any sector. It is what it is. So it's very difficult for me to. It's very difficult to segment and to channel. I think what I will have to do is build separate websites, separate channels for different audiences, but bringing them all back into the main place to order. I find it very difficult. If you're selling air, who would you sell it to? It's like it's almost as bad as that.
Yeah, it is a real challenge when you've got a broad audience. I think the key is like you say, that they find you through something that speaks directly to them. So if you're publishing stuff on LinkedIn that engages with what are your challenges as an architect or as a
I mean, the thing is, what my thing is about adding information to the 3D model. So it's not a really big ask for people to, if you've got a video attached and it's interesting, and they're a different target audience, they can see what it does, if you get it. So I have
specific questions or problems or challenges that audience has.
That's the best answer I've ever heard. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So yeah, this example I've got here, I've nicked this from my colleague Simon, who used to be a charity fundraiser for a company called World Vision. And it just gives, I think, a really clear example of how a customer avatar helps to shape the content that you create. So for World Vision, they created a customer avatar called Jenny. Jenny is a middle-aged woman who's a National Trust member. She likes flower arranging. She reads Good Housekeeping magazine. She likes long walks in the countryside. She likes slightly bougie skincare products. She cares deeply about spending quality time with her family, and she likes a girls' night out at the bingo. Everybody immediately knows who a Jenny is as soon as I reel off that list of things. And I imagine you're already thinking about the places that you might be able to advertise to Jenny, the channels that she's likely to hang out in. That having that kind of clarity of vision just immediately informs, this is where we're going to put it, this is who's listening. So yeah, here we go. Once you understand who they are, look for the channels they use. So for a Jenny, you might be looking for how you can create content through Mumsnet. You might be thinking about what's best formatted to go out on Pinterest. You might be looking to place an article in one of those Good Housekeeping style magazines. And then I've got another customer avatar on the right, and I'm sure just by looking at those three channels that I've got next to them, you can form a pretty clear picture of who that person is as well. I'm going to talk through very quickly and very broad brush all of the different social media channels. It sounds like you're all fairly au fait with this stuff already, but I'll just whiz through them. So Facebook, we're talking about the older audience generally. The baby boomers and the upper end of Gen X tend to be the ones who are most active on Facebook still. Facebook is great for groups and communities and creating fan pages around a specific activity, but it does have a tendency towards to use as an awareness raising channel, unless you take advantage of their sophisticated advertising tools. Then next one down, what used to be Twitter. Well, I used to love when it was Twitter, and now I've taken off my phone. So Twitter is targeted towards an audience that's the younger end of Gen X and the older end of the millennial audience, rather than just kind of spamming them with advertising. I've included a slide about alternatives to Twitter because we're in a bit of a weird zone at the moment where I feel like audiences are jumping ship, and there hasn't quite come along the perfect platform that's going to fill the void yet. So my money is probably on either Threads or Blue Sky to be the one that may take over the mantle. Threads because it's already got the inbuilt audience of people who have a Facebook or Instagram account, so it's got an immediate numbers advantage there. Blue Sky is the Twitter built by the people who originally built Twitter, essentially. So they've got that going for them, and people who are quite loyal to the original Twitter are starting to become active on there. But I don't think either of them really have the kind of cut through that other social media channels have yet. And they're still kind of unfinished, still a little bit in beta. So it'll be interesting to watch how those evolve. But I would say for now, it's unclear whether either of them are really worth it for businesses to be on. So this is part of the whole. I've been working in social media marketing now for 15 years. My first job in social media was literally just as Twitter and Facebook were kind of becoming a thing, and I was told by my manager at the time that you're going to be the person who gets to grips with what this Twitter thing is and does our marketing through it. And in that time, I've noticed there's a kind of repeated cycle that tends to happen, where a platform gets a lot of buzz, lots of young, trendy, cool people jump onto it. It's really active for a couple of years. Then their parents discover it, and then brands discover it. Then the parents and brands are on it. Then the young people leave. Then it carries on for another 5 or 6 years, getting gradually less and less traction until eventually it's the most uncool thing ever. Basically, every social media platform seems to be going through that cycle at kind of intervals of 4 or 5 years. Instagram is right at the peak at the moment, but I feel like it's at the point where it's at that tipping point right now. It is targeting the young adult audience. It's the younger end of millennials and the upper end of Gen Z tend to be the most active on Instagram still. Great for visual lifestyle brands. Anything that has a clear visual aesthetic tends to perform well there. It is at its most visible when it encourages conversation and sharing. So creating content that people want to share with their friends there is the best route to success. And using lots and lots and lots of hashtags. It's you can't do too many on Instagram, is my view. And because it's part of that Meta platform, it's also got access to that sophisticated advertising and targeting tools. And then the platform that I'm completely woefully out of my depth when it comes to TikTok, because it's the first one that's come along since I felt like I'm too old for this platform. So TikTok is targeted squarely at Gen Z. That means it's made for short attention spans. It's based on creating content that people will scroll past in a kind of endless scroll. And its main advantage over the other platforms seems to be that it has great licensing tools and editing tools for basically supplementing and building upon other people's content. So the advice I always give to businesses who ask me about TikTok is it something you're really interested in and invested in? Otherwise, it's not worth your time. It's got to be something where there's a genuine interest in creating content that fits with that platform. So that means being on top of what other people are doing on it, what people are creating, what the trends are, and interacting with those and adding your own spin on them, rather than just creating content for another platform and disseminating it through TikTok. It's got a really powerful recommendation engine is the other thing that's good for TikTok. So it's great as an awareness raising discovery platform, because if people like content that's similar to yours, they're going to tend to find your content too. The kind of downside of that is that means it can hinder some of the engagement and conversion that you might get with other platforms, because it's not really a place where an audience kind of sticks around. They'll be on to the next thing rather than waiting to read your novel of content. And then finally, we've got LinkedIn, which is the weird kind of outlier among social media, because it's designed for that kind of B2B purpose. It's at its best a great tool for those kind of B2B companies that focus on things like training, consultancy, recruitment, or software for other businesses. And it's much more of a platform that values long form content. So creating things like presentations, video content, articles that are slightly more in depth than you might find on other social platforms. Really works on LinkedIn because people are there generally to discover insights that are going to be useful for them in their work. They're prepared to spend a little bit more time kind of digging into things. It still has a lot of the same quirks that other platforms do, though. Like video performs significantly better than other types of content when people scroll past it. So even though people are theoretically using it for work, they still in some ways behave like they would on any other social network. And that also comes into play with the types of posts that tend to get more engagement, where you either kind of ask a question or spark a conversation. So think about how you phrase your posts in a way that that doesn't close things off, that doesn't offer a definitive statement, but asks people, what do you think, or what can you add to this conversation? Because those tend to get more replies, for one, but that also means that they get pushed higher into people's news recommendations. So it's a sort of virtuous circle. If you create something that people want to have a conversation around, it's going to become more visible as well. And then we have everything else. I've kind of spoken a little bit about some of these already. What do I have to add? Those middle three, YouTube, SoundCloud, Medium, I tend to think of those as, although they are technically social platforms, they're more content platforms than anything else. There's no doubt you can build an audience of millions of people through a YouTube channel, but only really by making that your job and running a YouTube channel full time. I would recommend that most businesses use those channels to host content that they then disseminate and publish elsewhere, rather than trying to build an audience through them, unless it's the sole focus of your business. If you're a video content producer, maybe YouTube is the right place for you. If you're an audio content producer, maybe SoundCloud is the right place for you. But I wouldn't make it the central pillar of your social strategy. Then we've got community-based apps. So Abbas, you mentioned that you use Discord quite a lot to engage with your audience, which is actually, I've been running these sessions for a while, and that's the first time someone's actually mentioned Discord unprompted. I usually bring it up at this point as maybe it's something you could be looking into if you're trying to build a community around your service. So I have a hunch that internet communication is moving towards these kind of closed networks. People have kind of reached a point with social media where they've realized, maybe I don't want to be broadcasting everything to the world, and maybe I want to find my community, my kind of smaller tribe, and build a much kind of tighter network that's maybe a few hundred people rather than millions of people. And that's where subreddits and Discord servers really come into their own, is those kind of groups that cluster around a very specific topic. So Abbas's example of gaming communities is a perfect one. Discord started as a gaming community app, and it's only recently that people have started to use it for other types of communities. Then on the left, we've got platforms that are much more challenging to create social content for. Pinterest, because it's more of a scrapbooking app than it is a social app, but it can be a really valuable tool for lifestyle brands to publish their content through. And WhatsApp, which I only mention here because people think of it as a social media app, and anyone who's trying to market through WhatsApp, I think, is intensely creepy and will probably not meet with much success. As hard as Meta and Facebook are trying to turn it into an advertising platform, it's very resistant to it, because fundamentally the reason people are on WhatsApp is the complete opposite of what social media advertising and marketing is about. So those are a few other things to be thinking about. Some of them might be specific use cases for you. I definitely wouldn't try and do all of them. So when and how often should you post on each of these platforms? At the bottom end, the Twitters, Threads, X's, TikToks of the world, pretty much unlimited. They are very in the moment social networks, so you can't really overdo it. And don't be afraid of posting the same thing twice through them as well. I think a lot of people get in their heads about publishing stuff repeatedly. It can get a bit spammy on other channels because people tend to have a much more curated feed. But if you think about the way people use X or TikTok, they're only going to see what's being published at the time that they're logging on. So if you publish something today, chances are a different audience will see it if you publish it again tomorrow. Then optimum kind of posting schedule for the other platforms: Instagram once or twice a day, and Facebook and LinkedIn a maximum of once per day. So last section, how to make all of this stuff happen, because that's a lot of different channels and a lot of different options and a lot of different content. My number one piece of advice, if you remember one thing from this session to take away, is there's no point in doing lots of different things and doing them really half-assed. do one thing and do it with your whole ass is my number one takeaway. Because lots of businesses do this. And it goes back to what I was saying at the start about people feeling an obligation to be on certain social channels rather than doing it with clear thinking behind it. So if you can do one thing really well and that's all the time you have, great, do that. Focus all your attention on making that the best it possibly can be. Don't try and do, we need an Instagram channel, we need a Facebook channel, we need a LinkedIn channel, and we're posting on there once a month and no one's interested because we're not doing it regularly, we're not doing it coherently, we don't have a strategy behind it. So that's my number one top tip for anyone doing social media. Think about the time resource you have and what it can best be applied to. I suspect we're about to get booted off again, are we?
Hi, Joe. You got a minute and a half.
Okay.
I've sent the invite for the next 40 minutes. Sorry. So we'll just carry on until we get booted off, and then jump on the last invite, if that's all right for everyone.
Cool. Okay.
Thank you very much.
No worries. I'm going to jump over this slide. I think it's all some pretty basic best practice stuff for how to manage your social accounts. I never know how to pitch this session, whether I should do it at the real kind of social media 101 or pitch it slightly higher than that. So I think you're all savvy enough to not need to worry about this slide. But this is coming back to the point that I was making earlier about how you can make best use of your time and how to how to do more with less, as it were. So I'm hesitating to start because I know we're going to get booted off soon. This pie chart is a visualization of the amount of time that you should be dedicating to different elements of your social media and content strategy. So roughly 10% of all the time that you spend on social media marketing is actually on creating new original content. And that's where, the really hard yards come in. You spend a couple of hours writing a really good piece of content or filming a really great.
Okay.
Welcome back. That's our last time logging into the link. Just before we cut off, I was saying this is the kind of rough breakdown that I recommend as to how you dedicate your week. You create that kind of long form content with the kind of smallest part of your time. Maybe block out an hour or two once per week to work on something that's going to demand a bit more of that kind of deep thought and time and dedication. But be thinking about, when you're creating that content, all the different ways that it could be repurposed. So if you are filming a webinar, for example, can you access the footage from that webinar and clip it out to create another 10 social media posts that you'll use over the next month? If you're filming a video, what are the insights that you can pull out from that? Can you do the audio track of it as a podcast? Can you get much more bang for your buck? But the actual majority I would recommend should be spent on curating content rather than creating your own original content. So that means things like being part of social groups that discuss your industry or your sector, pulling from them, reading the newspapers, reading websites that will share information about your industry and adding your own comment and your own spin on them. or soliciting advice from your audience, or questions from your audience and answering those. There's way more time should be spent on that kind of conversational call and response kind of aspect of social than on just creating stuff. The way I like to block it out is, I might have that afternoon once a week where I'll settle down with my headphones on and write an article, and I might have another couple of blocks of time where I schedule lots of posts based on that article. But then I also have 15-minute windows sporadically throughout the week where I'm jumping onto different platforms and just checking what conversation is happening. Maybe I'm going on my LinkedIn newsfeed where I've got a stream of people who I've worked with in the past, and I'm just kind of jumping on to offer an insight or a bit of feedback about something they've posted or published. Maybe I'm going to the Twitter stream that I've set up that's all of the local business support organizations, and responding and engaging with them. So just think about how you can most practically make use of your time and divvy it up so that you're constantly active and engaged, and people see you as a real person on these channels rather than just someone who's relentlessly pushing out content. We've got a new joiner in the room. Tim, hello.
We do. Hello. It popped up in my calendar.
Aha.
And I've been reaching out to Big for a while, and to South Bank. So I'm a bit confused. So I apologize that I'm late, and I've no idea what's going on, and I've no idea where I am. But I'm very pleased to be here.
That's okay. You're joining us for the last half hour of a social media marketing session. I have a couple more slides left, but then I'm planning to open to the floor and do some Q&A and help answer any questions you might have. So if you want to stick around, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have around social and content.
I see you're recording it.
Yeah, Tim's. I was going to say.
Are you going to share the record?
Yeah, I'll share the recording of this module as well, but also previous modules. So wherever you.
We can. I'll share that message and make sure you get the slides from this as well.
I'm back now.
I'm really grateful for that.
Apologies for the IT issues. I was saying, Tim, I'll send you links for the previous recordings so you can see what what's been missed. So you've got a copy of everything.
I'm really grateful for that, and sorry to have been disruptive.
That's no worries at all, honestly.
Not as much as I have been, so don't worry. I've caused more problems today than I have for a while, so I'll go quiet and let Joe finish off.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very
guys.
much.
So just a few more things to touch on. Places that you can curate content. I mentioned being on top of all the industry news and kind of consumer-facing news that's happening around your industry. Set up Google Alerts so that anything that's on topic, on trend that's coming up, you are immediately made aware of it, and you can jump on and add your own spin on that kind of breaking story. We talked a little bit when under content types earlier about things like polls and competitions. They're just a really straightforward, simple way of engaging your audience. You can give away something or get them to furnish you with lots of their kind of stories. So I tend to think of competitions as a bit of a two-way street. You're offering them something, a freebie, and in exchange, they're giving you some real quality content. So you set the parameters of what it is you want them to submit in exchange for that freebie, or whatever kind of giveaway it might be. Maybe it's a video of how they're using your product, or an example of one of their customers enjoying the service that you offer. And also, as well as talking about your customers and to your customers, who is in your wider network that you can engage with. So I mentioned things like other business support organizations that I will comment on and share with. who are you partnered with, who helps you deliver those webinars, who's filming the videos for you. Make sure that you shout them out as well as talking to your customers, because that's just a way of expanding your network constantly and reaching out into other people's pool of contacts. So make sure that they're mentioned at every opportunity. And then last but not least, a few top tips about it so far. So can recommend it. They each have their pros and cons. One of the challenges with those kind of third-party scheduling apps is they can sometimes be a little bit glitchy when it comes to publishing stuff through Instagram and Facebook, because Meta wants you on their platform and doesn't want you using a third-party platform. So they try to make life as difficult as possible for all of those third-party platforms. But they're beginning to get their house in order a little bit when it comes to their corporate accounts. So there is hope there. But generally, if you are most active on those platforms, I would say there's no better way of doing it than using Meta Business Manager. It's the best kind of central platform for Facebook, Instagram, and now Threads for scheduling and managing your time. If you have a kind of joined up marketing and sales funnel, I would also highly recommend checking out HubSpot. It can get quite pricey if you've got lots of contacts that you're managing through it. But they've got quite a good kind of tiered system for content creation and dissemination. So if you're only doing kind of smaller scale stuff through it, it can be quite affordable. And also, quick plug for my business, we also provide our members with a 90% discount in their first year of using HubSpot. So if you're ever interested in joining us. Another great thing about HubSpot is that they publish a lot of excellent free content around content strategy and social media management. So if you need some free tools just to help you formulate a content plan, chances are they'll have published a really comprehensive deck that you can use. And I use their tools all the time in my professional capacity. Next top tip, have a really clear schedule. Even if it's just an Excel spreadsheet that says who's doing what day, when you're writing it, when you're publishing it, when you're jumping back in to comment and add further information to stuff. And that's all part of my third tip, which is be accountable, especially if you are part of a larger team. Have a really clear idea of who's doing what and what happens if one of the links in the chain isn't available for whatever reason. If someone's sick or not in the office for a day, who picks up the slack? Just have a little bit of a contingency in place, and having a clear schedule with roles and responsibilities is a really key part of achieving that. I think, the remainder of this presentation is about social advertising, and I don't want to get too into the weeds with that right now because it's a big topic all on its own that could take another couple of hours. So we've got about another 15 minutes or so left of this session. I just wanted to open up to the floor and ask the three of you if you had any particular specific questions or challenges for me that you'd like my take on.
Yeah, I've got a question. So when you're starting up on the social media platforms, do you think it's advisable to protect the brand by registering at least on most of them so somebody else doesn't take that handle or whatever?
Yes, I think that is a sensible policy as long as it's use their kind of preferred social media platform to try and get in touch with brands. So make sure that you have at least alerts set up so that if someone, if you're not using a Twitter account that you've set up, but someone DMs you on it, you're at least getting that information coming through to you. But for the most part, I think most social media users are quite good at recognizing when exactly that's happening. Someone's squatting on a handle just to make sure that no one else uses it. Anything else I can help with? Any challenges that you're experiencing at the moment that I can give you some advice on?
Maybe if you can talk a little bit about scheduling the social media posts, because I'm also working with this intern who's helping with marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the challenges is to sort of understand like what this guy is working on. So I think scheduling is something that can help us out, but we haven't really explored it. So what is the best way to sort of ask any help to start scheduling the posts they're making?
Okay. I would start with a really clear kind of framework of how frequently you want them to be publishing and to what platforms. That could be, like I said, something as simple as an Excel spreadsheet. If you've got a bit more time to dedicate to it, I would recommend one of these scheduling tools like a Hootsuite or a Buffer or a Later. But be really clear what the parameters are for your intern. So if you say I'm expecting 2 posts per day on this platform, give them that template and say I'd like you to fill it out with what you're going to publish, and it can be some really broad strokes of I want to share a short video clip from one of our streams on this day at this time. I want to share a testimonial from one of our streamers on this day at this time, just so that there's a little bit of a framework there for them to work to. The key thing with scheduled posts is that they shouldn't be like the be all and end all of your strategy. So I like to think of them as it's a baseline of content that ensures that no matter what else happens, you always are maintaining an active account. So that's why having that kind of clear timetable of when things go out throughout the week that someone can kind of fill in the blanks on is the best way of going about it. So you've got a post every morning and every afternoon of every weekday. So then the other activity that happens around that is what I was describing earlier, the more kind of social part of social, which is we're going to have 15 minutes every morning, every lunchtime, every afternoon, where my goal is to log on and interact with, you can put a number on it, say 5 other people during the course of that day I'm going to have a direct conversation with. So I work quite a lot with junior consultants in my role. We get quite a lot of students and graduates from the university who come through and spend 6 months working with me, and I like to find a balance between giving them a bit of free rein to come up with their own ideas, but also giving them that structure to say, this is what I expect of you. Tell me how you would use that time, if you like. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think, yeah, that's really helpful. And also Hootsuite, is it a paid service or it's a free service that anyone can use?
It is free, I think, for if you're using less than 2 social accounts. Then it's a tiered pricing. It's not super expensive. I think it's like between £15 and £20 a month for the paid tier. But if you only have a couple of social accounts, then the free service is just fine. There's a lot of added bells and whistles that you get with the paid account, but to start with, if it's purely scheduling, I would just use the free one and see how you go. Tony, any Any final?
Well, you've actually really helped me, because it's been a whole, by turning it around and talking about content and talking about, what is being said. So, if you're talking about like behind the scenes, or you're talking about equipment, or you're talking about adding videos, or you're talking about what it does, then it doesn't really matter so very much about what the audience is. Because my audience is, the people that come along are really quite diverse. I could say, for instance, lighting designers. I could say, there are, but I only say lighting designers because that goes out to, when I've been challenged to say, well, say something is your target audience, and they go out to architects, they go out to, finished projects, they're builders, they're construction, they're all sorts of things. They're interior design, they're everything. So I think what I'm going to take from it is building the content and what it does, and let the audience, if I'm very clear about what I'm actually trying to say, hey, use this, it can do this, and concentrate on the why is really my audience is people who want to know how and why.
I'm glad that's your takeaway. That's
is it legitimate? Have I just skirted it altogether, or is it?
No, that is. I mean, that's why I start the presentation with that question, because it is the number one thing you need to answer to have an effective content strategy. So I'm glad that's what you picked up.
Well, I can't tell you how many other people who've fought with me over this, but I think whilst it might be easier if I fit it in a different way, I think this is something that I can work with. So thank you.
Cool. That's good to hear. I'd add to that also, one of the advantages of having quite a wide potential customer base is that it gives you plenty more avenues to explore that kind of curated content that's more tangential to what part of it you deliver. So if you think about, all of the types of company and organization that you partner with and work with, you don't necessarily have to be talking explicitly about your service and your product 100% of the time. You could write LinkedIn blogs that are things like, to come up with one off the top of my head, like five new software trends for architects, for example, where you're just a very small part of that picture, but you're sharing something that's useful and of value to them that might get them engaged and get them to explore a little bit more about the service that you offer. You can still end it with your sales message, but you don't have to feel like you're writing the same piece of content again and again, because you can go off on lots of different tangents with things that are kind of complementary to your own service.
That's it. People was talking about the canopy under the balloon being the most valuable. The balloon is the post, and the little chat underneath.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Is the canopy. That's what you mean.
Yeah, I like that metaphor. I'm going to be stealing that one for my next presentation. Thanks.
What was it you were saying about joining us? What was all that about? You were talking about you.
Oh, you okay for me to give a sales pitch to Hyle?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem.
All right. So the organisation I work for is Sussex Innovation. We are owned by the University of Sussex. We're a business incubator. So we basically work with startups and kind of small scale innovators, people with new ideas, new technologies, knowledge-based businesses, essentially. We connect them with academia, we connect them with researchers, we do market insight projects for them. I'm part of, obviously, the marketing and communications team who help them with their strategic marketing questions. We also have a finance team who offer financial readiness support and investor support. We have 2 sites, one on campus down in Sussex and one up in Croydon, which is how we are connected to the big South London organisation. So our Croydon campus is in the, I don't know if you know, the 50p building that's you can see out of East Croydon station as you go by on the train, the octagonal 60s building.
I was down at the other one at the weekend as well. My son just started there, so
cool. So yeah, we offer memberships from there, either on a kind of tenancy basis if you need office space, or on more of a co-working membership if you just want to kind of dip in, meet the community and take advantage of all the other support that we offer. So if you want to look us up, we're sussexinnovation.co.uk. I think there's probably a link on the slides that we'll be sharing after this as well.
Fantastic.
All right, thank you for giving me the opportunity to to do the spiel. I think that's getting towards the end of our session, right?